Welcome everybody to May's edition of Trivia. Sorry, I went the wrong event altogether tonight. May's edition of Drink and Draw. That's where we're at tonight. Thank you for joining us on this Friday night. Wisconsin Veterans Museum is very happy to have everybody here. And before we get started, speaking of the Wisconsin Veterans Museum, I just want to pay a bit of tribute to our foundation, the Wisconsin Veterans Museum Foundation, and thank them for providing all the support for this free programming that we've been putting on ever since the pandemic hit. We're going to continue this free programming even after we reopen to the public because it's a great way to reach out to a lot of different people from a lot of different places. And so this will continue even after we reopen, which I don't want to give too much away, but maybe another month and a half. And we should be reopening to the public hopefully about that time. So once again, thank you to the Wisconsin Veterans Museum Foundation and their executive director, Ms. Jennifer Carlson, for all their continued support in the events that we do here at the museum. Tonight, like I said, we're here for Drink and Draw. We have Yvette Pino ready to go. She's got a great program set up for everybody tonight. And so what I will do is turn it right over to you, Yvette. If anybody does have any questions before we get started, though, please remember to submit them through the chat function if you can. That way we can get them to Yvette as soon as possible. But otherwise, I hope everybody has a great time drawing tonight and we learn a lot of cool stuff. Yvette, it is all to you.
Thank you, Eric. Hi, everybody. I hope you're doing well. It's good to see some familiar faces already to start the program. Tonight, we're going to be doing a couple of images from the Gulf War, where for many of you know, we are on the 30th anniversary of the Gulf War. And so I have selected a couple images from a blog post that was written in February from our institution. And Molly is going to share the link to that blog post. So I will pull the images up on screen and we'll have a split screen so you can see them. But if you need future reference, Molly's going to give you the link. And then I have a couple folks that had been asking me that may not be able to visually see, but can hear what we're doing. So I'm gonna let you know if you are able to only listen, but you have access to the internet, then you should be able to visit our website at www.wisvetsmuseum.com. WISVETSMUSEUM.com, and then go to our blog section. So click on the blog section, and this is from the February 25th blog, and it's titled Wisconsin Was There, Desert Storm, commemorating the 30th anniversary of the Persian Gulf War, Part 2. So the images we're going to use are from Part 2 of the 30th anniversary. And I thought we are going to work with simple materials tonight. So I have this great sketch kit. We had some of these at our museum gift shop you can get. It's just basic pencils. It's got a little pocket for your eraser here. So tonight we're going to use something as basic as a 2B pencil, right? So just your simple lead. I like a little bit softer lead because we're going to be doing some smudging. And then a nice eraser. I like to keep a white eraser, but if you have just whatever eraser you have at home, you are going to need an eraser. So if you want to take a minute to grab an eraser, there's some prep work we can go and then get to. And then we also have paper. So if you just have a nice piece of paper, we're going to use that. And then I have this smudge tool. If you do a lot of pencil drawings, this is a nice little paper smudge tool. You can see mine's all chalked up from the charcoal that I use. But this is the best smudge tool in the house, your finger. So we're going to need a pencil, something to smudge with, and an eraser and a piece of paper. So on that note, just a reminder, as Eric said, you're welcome to use the chat function. If you have questions, please use the chat function. Molly knows she's allowed to interrupt me at any time to tell me there is a question. And then I'm going to be sharing a little bit of the story from that blog post about where these images come from. So also, so we know what we're looking at when we're drawing. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get us into my drawing software. Now, if you've attended before, you probably know that I use my iPad to do this with a tool called, I keep going to the wrong page, with a tool called Procreate. So it's a computer program, but it also is, forgive me, I'm gonna pull up the video on, give me 1 second. I'm gonna stop sharing for a second. Because I need to pull the image up for you. So this is the first one we're going to work on here, and I'll take myself out of the picture. So really simple image when you think about it, but the technique we're going to use today is going to be a reductive technique, which means we're going to use our eraser to pull this image out. And I'm going to walk us through that. So now I'll go ahead and share, and we'll split the screen. Okay, so you can see the image on the right. Hopefully you should have a split screen. If you don't, you can go to your view component and do side by side on your screen. And you will be able to see me and see the image, and I have the image there in my, so if you go to view, and then you can choose side by side speaker or side by side gallery. And if you do speaker, then you'll just see the sample image there. I'm also going to pull it up here on my canvas. So I'll pull this up here. Molly, is it still split screen? My split screen disappeared. Oh, it's because we're sharing screen. So what do you guys see? Do you see my iPad?
It's the minefield, the photo of the minefield.
And do you see me drawing on the screen?
Not at all.
Yeah, I think it stopped sharing screen. Need that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Sorry for the technical difficulties. We'll get started here. Just 1 second. All right. Now we see that, right? You're able to see my drawing pad? All right. So we've got a reference drawing on the up on the left of the screen here. And then if you are able to have split screen, you can see it on the right as well. So what we're going to do is with your pencil, if you have a nice sharp pencil, I'm using in my tool just a regular HB pencil. We are going to start. You're going to be on the right layer, first of all. Forgive me. We're going to start just taking the side of your pencil and just start filling in your paper with graphite. And just go back and forth. And you don't have to add a lot of pressure, just use the side of your pencil. And as you're going, you can just swirl your pencil around so you get that all sides of your lead use. And what we're doing is we're just giving ourselves a background of black. So I like to keep even pressure, just back and forth, filling in your paper, your ink, your lead on your paper. And if you end up doing that, like I just did, where you get a little bit darker than the normal, that's fine, because we're going to be covering it all the way in. I didn't mention you might probably want to have a pencil sharpener too, because we're going to be using a little bit of a lead here in the beginning just to fill in this background space. And some folks might like just to keep back and forth horizontal. To fill in the paper, I like to do a crosshatch where I do a little bit, I go back and forth at an angle to fill in the space. The biggest thing is we want to stay consistent. We want to get this filled in because we want to give us our nice smooth ground in the background. So I'll keep filling that in. And you can decide how, once you really start working in drawings like this, you can get a feel for how much background graphite you want to add to your paper. And you'll see why in a second, because I'm going to show you. I'm going to add some of this in here. When I start drawing, I don't really want to see the crosshatch mark, so I want to get it filled in. Now you can do this with charcoal too. If you have charcoal at your disposal, you can get charcoal or black pastel, or you can do this with, it doesn't have to be black graphite. This just is, the HB pencil has a little bit softer lead, so it smooths out really well. Once I get to about this far, I'll take a look at it, and a lot of times, if you're willing to be a little messy, you can take the tip of your finger and you can start. I have this tool up here. You can see it has a little finger. Exactly. You start using your finger and just start smudging it and smearing it around. I have the benefit of a computer, so it's really giving me an exaggerated smudging effect, but I just want to smooth out some of that ground back there. You don't have to go crazy with it, but you can just sort of smooth out all of those line marks. Sometimes this is an easier process with charcoal because you can really get the side of a piece of charcoal. So if you want to sharpen your pencil lead down, you can always do that. I'm going to add a little bit more graphite in there. So that's a good way to start prepping. It gets a little messy at first. If you want to grab a paper towel, wipe your fingers off, you can do that. I'm going to cheat a little and go to my screen that is already prepped for me. That has, so you can see this is what if you just did horizontal lines, you could go with that. It looks sort of like a staticky TV. I'm going to go ahead and do crisscross no smudge. So I filled out my entire paper and it's looking good, and you're thinking, what am I going to do from here? How can I draw on this, right? So what I'm going to do, once you're ready, you can find your eraser. So I see some of you guys are still prepping there. I'm going to give you a minute or two to continue to prep your paper here. And while you're doing that, I'm going to give you a little bit of information about this drawing that we're doing. So this image here is in Saudi Arabia. I believe it's either in Saudi Arabia or Iraq. Let me see. I'm going to go ahead and go from our blog post. So Jeffrey Kunjan is a Wisconsin veteran, and he has shared his collection with us here at the museum. And so in his oral history, he talks a lot about what he did during the Gulf War, and they were talking about advancing into and toward the Iraqi border. Just inside the Iraqi border, they were quickly bypassed or overtaken by the advanced, and it moved forward ahead of schedule. Jeffrey Kunjan of the 826 Ordnance Company out of Madison passed over the same terrain on a right flank a few days after the initial advance, and remember seeing the ease at which some of the obstacles were overcome. So if you think about obstacles as an advancing force is moving forward, we think a lot about fortitude and what that must mean that our troops might be up against. But in this example, in this picture, the Iraqis' next line of defense consisted only of 20-foot wide stretches of tanglefoot. So if you don't know what tanglefoot is, it's a type of barbed wire that's strung in a crisscross fashion around 6 inches above the ground. And it was nearly impossible to crawl under and very difficult to navigate on foot, especially if you're under fire. But beyond this tanglefoot was stacked concertina wire, which is like spiral barbed wire, and extended along the border as far as the eye could see. But the combat engineers would cut through these very simply. So it was not a really fortified defense. So what you're seeing here is those tanglefoot stretch for miles and miles across the desert. So we're going to be working on that image. At this point, you guys should have your ground on your paper. So what we're going to do now is you're going to need your eraser. So if you have an eraser handy, sometimes it's nice to have like a sharp edge to your eraser or a round edge. It doesn't matter. And I'm going to figure out where my horizon line is. So the horizon line is where the sky meets the land. So we're going to look, and that's about 3/4 of the way, 3/4 of the way up my paper. So I'm going to take my eraser and I'm going to slightly start erasing away where that horizon line is. So you can see I'm taking away with my eraser some of that line work.
Hi, I don't mean to interrupt, but I am the person that can only call in on the telephone. Do you guys could you email me what you're drawing, and then I could listen to how you're describing it through the telephone, and then I could draw with you?
Yeah, that's what so I'm not sure if you heard me earlier. The images are on our website.
And what website? Wisconsin Museum?
Wisconsin Veterans Museum. And if you want, Molly is in the chat, Molly Snow. If you send her your email address.
Okay, I can only do it on the telephone.
Okay.
I can't chat. I'm sorry.
No. We actually went over this. It makes perfect sense. So the website is wisvetsmuseum.com. So WIS, V as in veteran, ETSMUSEUM.com.
Okay.
And when you go to the website, it's on our blog post. So if you just scroll to the middle of the page, there'll be a little block that says blog, and you can click on that.
Okay.
And then it's the February 25th blog post.
Okay.
And it's titled Wisconsin Was There, Desert Storm Commemorating the 30th Anniversary of the Persian Gulf War. Part 2. It's part 2.
Okay.
And the image we are currently working on is, it's the caption reads, 20-foot wide stretches of tanglefoot left by Iraqi troops.
Okay. Okay, let me, I will try not to bother everybody. I'm very sorry about this. I'll try to get this pulled up, and I'll try not to interrupt anymore unless I have any problems. But thank you, because this way I can draw with you.
That's wonderful. No, and I was thinking about that, and we were, I didn't get a chance to see an email from you today. We wanted to make sure that you were able to participate as well. And I will do my best to narrate visually so you know what we're doing, as long as you have access to that reference image.
All right, so I won't keep everybody. I apologize. I'm trying to pull it up right now. If I have any problems, I'll let you know. Hopefully I can get this up and I won't bother you guys. So thank you for letting me participate.
Well, welcome. I'm happy that you're here. It's no problem whatsoever. We're here in normal drink and draw environment in person. We do exactly this. We go to each other's tables and we talk and we share and we talk about what we're drawing. So that's what this event is about. It's about sharing how to draw, and everybody should be able to join in. So don't hesitate to chime in, and I'll keep an ear out for you.
Great. Thank you so much. I appreciate everyone's patience.
Of course. Okay, so we're back. And then when you do, if you do get it pulled up, ma'am, let me know. That way I can catch you up to where we are in the drawing. Okay. So
Okay, yeah, I'm trying to pull it up right now on my hotspot.
okay, great.
But don't hold up for me. I don't want to hold everybody up. So I'll get back with you when I can get it up.
Okay,
Thank you.
No, you're welcome. Okay, so we started out, with the horizon line. So we're now taking the eraser, and I'm just going to take a little bit of the material away along that horizon line. And then if you look at the bottom of the sky, you see that it goes light to dark as you move your way up in the sky. So we're going to use our eraser. And if you have the fat side of your eraser, you can really start to take material away. So you want to sort of have a light hand at this, because you don't want to necessarily, like, I'm just for an example, you don't want to just start gouging out, because there's a softness to this. So you want to just slightly, just kind of like we did with the pencil, going back and forth, start pulling material away. And at the bottom toward the horizon line, it's a little bit wider. It's lighter, so you can take out a little bit more material. And then as you start to move up, it gets a little bit less so that it fades into actually having color on the top of the sky. So we're going to just start making our way up. And we're going to move upward, and I'm going to leave a little bit of that black up there, just so that I have what would be, if we were doing it in color, it would be the blue pigment. So we're going to leave a little bit of it, we're going to leave it darker at the top. But as we get close to that horizon line, we really start pulling out some more material, some more of that pencil. So as I get further into the drawing, I'm going to show you how I use the smudge technique to smooth that out again. I have a little bit more of a painterly touch to my drawings. So I will probably use the smudge technique more than a lot of sketch artists do. That's your preference. You don't, everything I do, you don't have to do. I'm just walking you through how I do this. Okay, so now that we've got that really pulled out, I'm going to look at the sand, and you're probably thinking, how do I differentiate the sand from the sky? And what we're going to do is we're going to pull out some of the material in a similar way, but the way we differentiate is we really start to think about, we start to pull out a little bit more on that horizon line, so that we know that the sky starts here. In the sand area, I'm going to circle for your reference, and then I'm going to take that out. But this area here is a little bit lighter than this area and this area. So I'm going to be taking out more material from there. So I'm going to undo that. So I'll start here. I'm just checking what. Okay. And I'll really start to pull some material out. And you can see I'm just going right to left, just these little wispy marks. And we can get into more details in a little bit, but I'm looking at where the lightest areas are versus the dark areas. And where the light areas, obviously, I'm going to use the eraser and pull out a little bit more. Because what's nice is as we start to pull this out and start to make sense of what we're looking at, we can add back details in. There's nothing that says I can't go back in with my pencil and start adding some more graphite in if I took too much out with the eraser. So again, this area here has it's a little bit lighter, so I'm going to take a little bit more out. And down in this area where we start getting the sand and the terrain, you're going to you can do a little bit more, fill in the shapes of where the texture is. So for example, I've got what looks like almost like a little wave pattern. So I can do an outline so I know where I want to take the eraser to. So start pulling out some of that. You can see just down in this area, it feels like I have almost like little divots in the sand. So I can maybe take the side of my eraser and just make these little divot type marks just to give you some texture.
May I ask, is this the 20-foot wide stretches of tanglefoot left by Iraqi troops that we're working on?
That is correct.
Oh, I've got the picture. Okay, great. I'm just a little behind, but I can at least see what you're doing and listen. Okay, great. Thank you. And maybe next month I can get it ahead of time and I'll be more prepared.
Oh, no worries. And at the end of this tonight, I'll be sharing my email address so that you and I can communicate via email.
Okay.
And I can get you set up. We're going to have a guest artist next month, but I'll get you set up with information. She's going to be a pre-recorded video, so we'll get you her video in advance so you can watch it.
I tried to send an email, but I think it may have gone to your spam folder because I didn't hear back and I didn't know how to call you to double check on it.
Oh, well, I'll double check that and we'll be in contact after tonight for sure. That
Great. Thank you so much. Well, I'm looking and listening and I won't bother you guys anymore. So thank you so very much.
You're welcome. We are just to get you caught back up. We're working now on we're still pulling out. We put graphite all over our paper and then we pulled our eraser out and we're removing the area that's on the lower part of the drawing where the sand sort of divots.
Gotcha. Okay, great. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you. So you guys can see I'm sort of pulling it. I'm just using my eraser, just really creating these little just free marks on there in the pattern that the sand makes. And that's all going to get mixed in as we start thinking about using the blend mode. Now I'm going to go back up on this horizon line because I feel like I didn't, for some reason, the eraser how I was doing it wasn't taking out the line the way I wanted it to up here. So I'm not quite sure how I can do this. So I think I'm going to go in with some graphite and try this again. So I have a little bit more of a definition between sky and land. And that's what I mean. You can always add back in. And it actually, the more you do that, it gives you this wonderful textured, it leaves a little essence of what you had behind. It doesn't always completely remove it. So you end up with this dimensionality to your drawing that you didn't even realize you were doing. It can be a really nice touch. And I have a feeling, I'm wondering if I have another layer on. I do. That's what happened. I had another layer on. That's all right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cheat a little bit, but that's just for the sake of keeping us on time. So if you go up here, this is what I was talking about on the horizon line. So when you start taking your material away, you want to have that nice definition of line across the horizon where you pull out the information and you slowly make your way up. And I'm going to make sure I'm on the right layer. You slowly start to make your way up so that it stays darker at the top. So you pull out make sure I'm on that layer. All right. So I'm just gonna pull out a little bit more here. Use the bigger side of my eraser. And this is the area that I was telling you that is really light. So we'll work our way around. Where you see the black lines, the stripes on the left, which would be the posts that the tanglefoot is attached to. It is a little bit darker, but you can start to really define that area by pulling out some of that. You're going to make the rows with your erasers. So let me show you how to do that. So if you've ever drawn with perspective, you might have heard the horizon line is the back line that we've talked about. And the further things go back, think about a point in space. So let's say I'm looking at this point back in space. I'm going to undo all this, but the closer things are to you, the bigger they get, right? So if I'm looking at this point in space, think of like cornrows, where as it goes back in space, it gets smaller and smaller. So that's what I'm looking at with those rows of posts to the left of the image. So I'm going to undo what I just did here. And we're going to take our eraser and we're going to pull out some of those areas between the posts. So take a little bit of, and you can give yourself a little bit of an outline of where those rows are, just to help guide your eye. And remember, it gets smaller as it goes back toward the horizon. So you're making almost like little triangles. And this is just laying the foundation for before we put those posts in. And this doesn't have to be perfect, because remember, we're just doing a foundation. This isn't detail work here. This is just how the light is hitting in these areas. And my eraser is a little bit too narrow there. So this is a good place to really just use the like flat butt side of the eraser. So I'm just giving myself a little bit of work to know where those posts are going. It just guides our eye in this composition. And I zoom in on this image, you can see it where those posts are. It really starts to go all the way around those posts, those like telephone posts, and far, far back into the horizon, because in his quote, he said the entire border was covered in this tanglefoot. So we want, the way you can cheat your eye to think that it recedes back is make that curve go all the way to the back, and the line gets smaller and smaller as you go back there. So now we've got those rows established. I'm going to make this, bring that back down. Pull that out. And then next to the farthest left row, I see it gets really light there. So I'm going to start pulling out more material, so you get the lightness of the sand. And then it goes, it gets darker as it goes back to the horizon. That's the other thing. If you're working with perspective and you're working with horizon, the further back you get, the darker things get. The more in the foreground, the brighter they are. And that also depends on where the light is shining. where your shadows fall. But if we're just working with black and white here, so the further back you go, the darker things get. So if you want something to feel like it's much more in the foreground, you're going to keep it a little bit brighter. So I just noticed this area of land. I'm going to pull out there. So I think we're at a good spot to maybe experiment with the smudging a little bit. Here's where down here where I was saying we're doing the divots. I know I switched images. I'm just giving myself some sand divots down here. Just using the side of the eraser to just sort of give myself some of that textured ground feel. This doesn't feel like a lot right now, but it starts to come together as you start working into it. So I'm going to use my smudge tool on the computer, but for you, that means your finger, or if you have one of these paper, it looks like a cone that you can do. There's also something called a chamois, which is a little cloth, textured cloth. But I'm going to start smudging a little bit into this. Yeah. I was almost using my actual smudge tool on my iPad, and that doesn't work. That doesn't work as a stylus. So you see, what the smudging does is it starts to smooth all of that together, right? You start to mix it together, so you're almost making a gray. And that's what you want. There are going to be places where we want the definitive white to be there. And we're going to keep going into this and adding more graphite and pulling back out with the eraser. But for now, I'm going to start smoothing some of this out so we really start to see what how our landscape is coming together, especially down here where some of these divots are. I'm going to smooth some of this out. And you can go in different directions. Sometimes the different directions when you're smudging help you draw your eye into what you want it to see too. If you think it's like, for example, when we get to the sky, clouds are round, so we start to do a little bit more of a round swirl. And then I'm just going to go a quick back and forth on here, just to loosen it up a little bit. So when we get to the sky, I like to really pull this white, get a little bit of a haze going on. The smudge tool works really well to develop that hazy feeling in the sky. I was deployed to Iraq twice, spent a lot of time in Kuwait, spent a lot of time in Iraq, and the sandstorms are, Kuwait especially, we experienced a great deal of amount of sandstorms. So you can see on the horizon where it's white, and then before it turns to blue, it's got that almost like brown haze. That's literally sand in the air. So doing this smudge tool up here will help really get that little bit of hazy feel that you see in the sky. This is where I like to get a little swirly in with what I'm doing. And you can bring the black down and pull that into the grays, and then bring the white up and pull it in to the black up there, and really give yourself this painterly feel. Sometimes the smudging will be more cooperative. It also depends on the type of pencil you're using. Not all pencils not all graphite will smudge as easily. So you can see now I've created almost like a painterly sky. So I want to get my eraser tool because I think I want to pull out a little bit. I'm going to grab my eraser and start pulling out a little bit more in here. And where that tower is, where the posts are, you can see, I'm going to pull out a little bit of, I'm going to give myself almost a little bit of a visual clue of where my eye needs to be looking in that sky. So. And Molly, it looks like there's another, if the caller might be entering back in the waiting room, I'm not sure. All right, folks. I think we've got that sky built up really well. I'm going to smudge a little bit more. Yeah, so what really, it's your preference, how smooth you want it to look. A lot of folks like sketching like a lot of sketch marks on their drawings, and I think those are beautiful. I always get a little too overzealous when I do that, so you won't see a lot of that in my work. Okay, before we move to the next step, I'm gonna look right here where this tower is, and I'm gonna establish some more lightness in this sand. So I'm using my eraser again, and I'm gonna start pulling out some more material. And lighten that area. Now you see on the middle right, there's another area of black, what I imagine to be more posts that are lined up. So I'm going to take my pencil, because I've pulled out so much material now, I'm going to go ahead and add some more black into that area to remind me that there is actually something going on here that's not just sand. And when we're done with today's drawing, I do encourage you to go read that blog post. The Gulf War came and went so quickly that I think a lot of us forget about that conflict and the veterans that served in it. And there's, we don't have a lot of those stories yet because those veterans haven't been ready to share their story. But we're really encouraging, if you are a Wisconsin veteran or know of a Wisconsin veteran that served in the Gulf War, we're interested in learning your story, because the only way we know more about those experiences is if people are kind enough and generous enough to share those experiences with us. Our curator of education, who's on with us tonight, himself is a Gulf War veteran. So thank you, Eric.
My pleasure, and I can't wait till I hit a certain amount of years to where I can be considered a Wisconsin veteran, so I can share my story.
That's right. Well, you're a Wisconsin veteran in our hearts. I hit my 10-year mark this year, so I celebrated. I was like, "Woo! I can turn in my collection now." For those of you listening that may not be from Wisconsin, the Wisconsin Veterans Museum loves to tell the stories of our Wisconsin veterans, and we have many things within our collection from those Wisconsin veterans, including veterans that maybe were not born and raised in Wisconsin, but have lived in Wisconsin for 10 plus years. So we have a lot of people like myself that relocate to Madison and retire and live here, spend the rest of our lives here, and become, I have cheese running through my veins now. I'm officially part of Wisconsin. But that's what we mean when we say our years are almost ready for us to turn in our collection. So we are at a point, I think, where we can start thinking about now adding into the drawing. So going back in with our pencil. I'm just looking at my time because it's 7:44 already. How the time flies, but it's okay. We're here for you guys tonight for this drawing. Let me just see. I have some move ahead. I'm going to move ahead and go and show you when you get to a certain point now, you can take your pencil And you can, I'll make this a little bit bigger. I realize I've been drawing on a very small section tonight. You can take your pencil and start drawing back into it. So if I go here, I'm going to try to figure out where does this telephone wire, electrical wire go, right? So if we look at the image as a whole, if you divide your paper in half, it's not quite at the halfway mark, and it's not at the half of a half. It is about 3/4 over, right? So we're gonna just look at those rows that we created, where the posts are directly to the right. We're gonna just take your pencil and draw that line up. And obviously it doesn't go all the way up to the sky, but it is pretty tall. So just take your pencil and start drawing the line. And then it's pretty parallel to itself. So we'll draw another line. So now we've got two lines that almost look like a stretched out football post, right? Like, oh my gosh, my brain just went blank. Full goal. Goal post. Wow. Trust me, I actually know what I'm talking about. And then we'll do the top of the post here. And this is where you can get as creative as you want. If you look closely at this image, you see where the little wire connectors are on the top of that post in silhouette. So, and then if you look closely at the middle of that post, there's a little cross beam there, support system. It's subtle, so you just get it doesn't have to be really dark. You can even take your eraser and pull some of that out so it's not as pronounced. And then this is my favorite part, but you have to be really sort of disciplined. In the photo, subtly, you can see that there are actual wires coming from it. You have to look real close, but you can see that from, you can imagine, and this is where your artistic license has to come in. The photo, just very lightly, you can see that the wires are fading off into the distance. So real light touch, real thin lines, and then they go across almost horizontally, and they dip down just a little bit, the wires. And again, real light hand, just barely see the wires. I don't know why, but in this moment I felt Bob Ross take over me, and real happy wires just going across. And so that's a nice little detail there in the image. Now we can go through and we can think about drawing these posts. So what's interesting to me, you got your horizon line back here. Those posts start stretching around far in the distance. So they go actually behind this post. So behind the post, if you bring a curved line around like this, you can see they come and then they sort of do a jagged line. They stretch the terrain in ways that if you look close enough, you can really see how they play with that distance in that zigzag fashion. So I'm going to give myself a little outline of where they go. They go far in the distance, and then they come across, and then they come here. And then I'm going to start drawing the post. So the other thing about perspective as it goes back and recedes in space, I'm going to draw again and show you and then erase. So if you're looking at something that goes back in the distance, right? That as it goes back, you have that angle, but then all of your lines stay up and down, right? And then they start to go, they get smaller as they recede in the distance. So that your lines are going to still stay parallel up and down vertically. And then you follow that little triangular line all the way to the back there. So I'll show you how I do it on the curved line. So I have this curved line here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I gave myself this light, subtle outline. Now I'm going to do those posts that are there. And these are just random, almost looks like beach, right? Like this almost looks like beach fencing. If you've ever gone on the coastal area, or like here in Wisconsin, we have the lakes. These just look like those posts that block off certain areas in beach land. And that's all it is just like wooden posts stuck in the sand out here. And as we get back toward the back, you see it gets smaller. So then my little hatch marks get a little bit smaller, and they're following that curve, and they just go in the back to the point where it turns into a solid line because it's just receding in the back. So we've got here in the foreground, we've got a couple big posts that just stick up. And I actually see where my terrain needs to get a little bit lighter here. So I need to pull out, use my eraser again, pull out some of that sand here in the foreground. You really start to develop the look of what's closer and what's far away just by pulling out and using different levels of value. So I'll go ahead and draw in a few more posts, and then I'm going to see if anybody wants to share their drawings. I know I was walked us through this fairly quickly with adding a lot of graphite to your paper to start with. I know that took a lot of prep work, but now you guys know where this image can be found on our website, and so you can take your time and even after tonight keep working on your drawing. But I'm just going to keep drawing these posts in here. And this, you can kind of have fun with the imperfection. These aren't in a perfect line. That's what makes this image, I think, interesting, is that they are in place, but not in an imperfect, uniform fashion, which is a metaphor for how weak this fortification actually was. And that's what some of those oral histories tell us, that this was not really the greatest opponent to fight against. Was not exactly a hard to breach. And on these, you can't really tell on this photograph, but you sort of can. In the frontal area where these posts are, is you can start to see where that wire is crisscrossed. So you can start adding some of these wires. I'll draw some of these posts in so you can see what I'm talking about. So obviously we still have rows of posts to add in, but you can see where this wire is crisscrossed across there. And since we heard the oral history and we know what tanglefoot is that it's these posts with the wires crisscrossed across them about 2 feet up from the ground. So you can imagine crisscross wire in here and really let some of your artistic liberties take hold. If you want to do more research and look up tanglefoot online, it might be able to help you enter in with a more precise and accurate view of what you might actually be looking at. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's a couple here. Okay, so I'm going to pause my drawing there for a second. I'm going to look at my folks here and see if anybody wants to share. If you want to share, just hold your drawing up to the camera and I will spotlight you. So let me stop sharing for a second. All right, I see the Stanley family. Hold on, let me spotlight you. Look at that, John. Let me stop split screen here for a second. Stanley family, I'm gonna spotlight you here and again in a second. Give me 1 second. Pull back just a little bit. You did so good with using your eraser. Did you draw that? This one's yours? That is really beautiful. Look at that sky and the way that you got the clouds in there. And your perspective is gorgeous. Oh my goodness. If you guys, let's see. Oh, I love the posts on this one too. The separate rows. Those are gorgeous drawings. Would you all mind taking a picture and emailing them to me? I'd love if you'd share those with me. Those are gorgeous. Lisa, I see that Lisa wants to share, so let me spotlight Lisa. Oh, again, these are just wonderful. So you've got the beautiful hatch mark. This is what I was talking about. Some folks like to use the hatch mark lines a little bit more than I do. You get that, pull back just a little bit, Lisa. You get that wonderful sketcherly feel. I get a painterly feel. This has wonderful sketched lines on it. Thank you so much. That was Lisa Dubin. I'm going to get the other Lisa on now. Thank you, Lisa. And let me try this again. Move all spotlights and then Lisa, I'll find you again. Give me 1 second. See, you got pulled back just there, just a little bit. Good. So yeah, you were able to get those rows as they merged to the back on the rails. And yours is nice because those two telephone poles are very much in the distance. They're just subtle in the background and it's weighted perfectly with the slight dark up on the horizon, up on the upper right. That's gorgeous. Thank you, Lisa. I hope you all are enjoying tonight's drink and draw. I'm sorry. I'm trying to do too many things at once. Give me 1 second. Gallery. Okay. Anyone beautiful. Let's see what we got. Oh yes, Molly, thank you. Molly added in the chat. If anybody wants to email me their drawings, I love receiving the drawings. I think what you guys did tonight was amazing. My email is in the chat, but for those of you that might be on the telephone, who I think our caller might be needing to be admitted again, so she could hear. And my email is yvette.pino@dva.wisconsin.gov, and I'm going to spell it for you. YV as in Victor, ETTE dot P as in Paul, INO at dva.wisconsin.gov. So please feel free to email me. Some of you have emailed me from the past drink and draw, and I love them. And I am just catching up with all my assignments because I've promised to put some of them on social media. And of course, let me add myself back in here. And of course, I will hold true to that promise. I just have had a busy spring. But I'm going to actually, before we wrap up, I want to toss it over to Eric to talk about upcoming events. And before I do that, just so you all know, June's Drink and Draw, we are going to have a guest artist. I've been promising this for a couple months. She's been confirmed. Her name is MB Delacchio, and she is an Army veteran as well. She is um, I'm pulling up her bio. Iraq War veteran. I consider her a friend. We've done a lot of promotional events together as artists and as women veterans. She's a London-based artist. So June's drink and draw is going to be a little bit different because Michelle is in London, which is 6 hours ahead of us. She runs Veteran Art Studio via her YouTube channel, and she's going to pre-record her drink and draw session. We're still going to be live. We're going to play the video, and she's going to be available to answer questions via chat. But it's going to be pre-recorded on sketchbook. It's going to be sketchbook drawings. So I actually have it's MB Delacchio in June. And she, just so you know, Michelle was a medic, mental health sergeant, and retention NCO in the Army for 8 years. And while she was deployed in Ramadi in 2004, she served as a member of Team Lioness, which was the first female team that was attached to Marine Infantry and Special Forces to perform checkpoint operations. She has an incredible background. She's written a book. She teaches art on Veteran Art Studio. You can catch that on our YouTube channel. We're going to put all that in the Facebook and the Eventbrite, so you don't have to remember it. But I'm really excited that she is available for us in June. And then in July, we're going to have Amber Zora, another Army veteran, dear friend of mine, is going to be teaching Sumi watercolor, water brush techniques. And we're going to have some special drink and draw kits available through our gift store for that. So June drink and draw, guest artist MB Delacchio. Keep an eye out on Facebook in the next week, and we'll be putting out that information. Eric, I'm going to toss it over to you so you can let everybody know about other events, and then I'll say a quick goodbye.
Thanks, Yvette. I hope everybody had a great time tonight. Looks like everybody's drawings were way better than anything I could produce, and everybody seemed to be enjoying themselves, and that's what we want at Drink and Draw. And so like Yvette was saying, we got guest artists coming up for our next 2 drink and draws. And so that's something really to look forward to. Of course, we continue our trivia nights. Trivia Tuesdays coming up next week. So if you're feeling pretty bold on your historical trivia, join us for that. We'd love to see you there. It's a lot of fun. And then we also are going to be continuing our movie nights and our curator conversations, but also look forward to our summer schedule coming up. We have the addition of a few new book talks that are going to be coming out and some special lectures as well. So on top of everything else, we're going to have some really fantastic events going on. And who knows, we might even get back into the museum for our first live event. And I know, right? I'm pretty excited about that. But yeah, thanks everybody for joining us tonight. From Molly and myself and Yvette, we hope you have a great weekend and at the very least a wonderful Friday night after you get done here with us. Thanks for joining us, and we hope to see you next time.